Street vendors are everywhere in New York City, but by far the most iconic is the hot dog cart. But I've always wondered, how profitable are they? What does it take to open one, and how hard is it to really run one? Today, I'm working on one myself to get the answers to those questions. But I'm not just selling at any hot dog cart. I'm selling with Dan Rossi, the hot dog king of New York, which is why my workday actually started last night. Dan sleeps in his van every night to reserve his spot selling hot dogs outside the Met. So, for a true day in his life, I decided I need to have a night in his life, and I rented a van and slept in it next to his.
That's just how you do it when you're rolling with the hot dog king.
The things I do for this job.
As the guys get started for the day, they unload about $350 worth of supplies into the cart. My only other cost so far was $25 to get my food handler's license with the city.
I'm going to be keeping a rolling list of all the general costs to run a hot dog cart and how much I would make based on how many hot dogs we sell today. For now, we're not going to count long-term costs like the cost of buying a cart.
So why don't you come over here?
Okay.
You're gonna make us a hot dog.
Awesome.
Now what you want to do is you put it so you can roll it. And you're gonna go back and forth. You give it a little while. It's always by sight.
Okay.
You're so used to it, you know exactly when it's done. You know? So you're gonna take your hot dog. Now you're gonna say, what do you want? Hot mustard, ketchup, sauerkraut.
I'm gonna do it nice. Sauerkraut.
Turn around. Well, you're kind of on the cheap side. And that's it. There's your hot dog.
Now that I got the basics down, let's take a step back.
So if I was starting my own cart tomorrow, what do you think my startup costs would be?
I would start with a small hot dog cart.
Yeah.
And buy one for a couple of $1,000s at the most. Buy a used one that can still pass inspection.
Yeah.
And as far as startup costs, it couldn't cost you more than $300 or $400.
What are the kind of things that people don't realize cost a lot?
The commissary is a big thing, and what happens when you're in the commissary, for them to exist, you got to buy from them.
While Dan gets his supplies from Costco, that's not the usual case. Most vendors get their supplies from the commissary that they take their cart to overnight, which is typically a little cheaper and definitely less work.
For another perspective, I spoke to a hot dog vendor in Times Square who asked to remain anonymous.
Do you take your cart to a commissary kitchen at night?
Yeah, 37th Street.
37th Street. How much does the commissary kitchen cost you a month?
$250.
Commissary kitchens are all permitted by the health department and help ensure that all carts sell clean, safe food. Then I'd need to find a place to set up my cart that complies with siting rules like being the right distance from curbs and other businesses and avoids restricted streets. I'd also need a sales tax ID and mobile food vending license. Plus a permit, which is actually impossible for me to get, but I'll explain that in a bit. What do you think is attractive to people about running a hot dog cart as a business?
Well, people think it's easy.
Yeah.
That's mainly it. They see a line, they think, oh, you're going to make a lot of money. But not that way. If you were going to go into this, is as simple as it gets. There's no brick and mortar. Normally, there's no big rent. If you don't have much money, this is the way to go.
If I was opening my food cart, what kind of margins do you think I could expect? Like, how tight is it? Is it tighter than a brick and mortar restaurant?
You got to keep your costs down to under 30%.
Yeah.
If you do that, you're going to be okay. So this is the perfect way to learn.
So far, we've only made like $50 today. And don't forget that we started the day down $350 from all the supplies that we bought. Even just to recover my costs and hit minimum wage for the day, I need to sell like $450 more. We're behind. It's time to take it up a notch. Do a little hot dog! Get your hot dogs!
Hot dog? Only $4.
They're running away from me!
Hey!
Este es lo hot dog, lo más antiguo de toda la ciudad. It won many awards. It has a Michelin star. We have a special offering just for you. You would like a Michelin style hot dog? Just for you. That's $85. It's cash only. President Joe Biden eats here. Are you interested in a hibachi style hot dog? You know when do they squirt the sake? Is it I can squirt mustard in your mouth? No, really. No, it'll be okay. No, it'll be fun. Do you want to catch a hot dog in your mouth? Just catch the shrimp. For real? We're locked in. Yes! That was electric! Napkins are extra. It's the best hot dog in New York City. That's what everybody's saying. All right, it's like 3 o'clock right now. We have like 2 hours left to sell. I'm honestly just tired and taking a break. We made a lot of money in the lunch rush though. I think we're at like $700 for the day now, so that's good. How much of a difference do you think it is from your peak in the summer to like your low point?
Say $1,000, we go to $400.
Yeah.
That's bad. I'm going to try between now and September to to put a few dollars away. You know, last year I had to borrow money to get us through the winter.
Yeah.
Because what you might think it's great, but there's overhead. We have 2 carts.
Yeah.
It costs me $4,000 a month to store these 2 carts.
But you're like 90% of where you were at pre-COVID.
Pre-COVID.
When you opened your cart 17 years ago, say here at the Met, what were you charging for a hot dog?
$2.
$2, and now we're at $4.
Now I'm $4.
How many customers on average do you think you have in a day in one of these carts?
On this cart, what do you figure about 300 customers? 3 on each cart.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's pretty good. But what'll happen is after Labor Day, it just starts to get lower and lower and lower. And we don't see any turnaround until the end of March. You know, so if you don't have a few dollars put away, you're in trouble in the winter. Other locations, like I said, if they're in the business area, it's the same customers every day. A guy who has those corporate carts, he can tell you what he's gonna make every day. We depend on the tourists. And if they don't come, nothing.
All right, it's time to talk about the absolute mess that is food vending permits. Food vending in New York City used to work entirely differently until 1995. It was legal to own multiple permits and lease permits out. But this led to monopolies and added costs for vendors. Because the person who owned the permit only paid the city $200 to renew it every 2 years, but could lease it out for $4,500 in that time. With the new law in 1995, the city tried to make it so that the person who owned the permit was the person actually operating the cart to cut out the middleman. Dan got into the world of hot dogs in the 80s, before the new law was implemented. By 1994, Dan acquired 2 companies that owned a combined 499 permits, which he rented out for about $1 million in rental income a year. After the law changed, Dan was left with a single permit, and in 2007, for the first time, he actually started selling hot dogs. At that time, a vendor was paying the city $500,000 a year for the exclusive right to sell outside the Met. The museum is on New York City Parks property, where it's standard practice to bid for the right to sell. But Dan found a Civil War-era policy to support the idea that he should be able to sell here without fees or permits as a disabled veteran. It took a while, but he finally got to sell in the spot without the usual fee. But Dan says he still has a bit of a target on his back from all of that, and this is obviously a very valuable spot, which is why Dan started sleeping here to protect it. So, like I was saying, in 1995, this new law was put in place to stop middlemen from leasing permits to vendors. So, has it worked? Not even a little bit. I had an hour-long call with Mohammed Atiyah from the Street Vendor Project to learn everything there is to know about getting a street vending permit. I'm gonna spare you the full version, but here are some of the main ways that the permitting process is completely broken. There are 6 types of permits. The citywide permit is the most important and the most broad. The city has 3,000 of them, and they let you sell pretty much any type of food anywhere within the 5 boroughs. So in 2021, the city made a new law to increase the permit cap to keep up with demand. This created a new waiting list that included everyone from an old waiting list and newly eligible existing vendors, amounting to about 10,000 names. But the health department only makes 445 permit applications available every year, and they send these notices by mail and give people 90 days to reply. These vendors who have been on the wait list for years often never get the letters, and some have long since started different businesses. And while the health department waits for people's responses, the permit isn't being used by anyone. Just to show you how poorly it's working, in 2 years they've sent almost 1,900 applications for supervisory licenses, and only 127 were completely processed.
I think I was applied 2 years ago and I got my number was 471. I paid the fee and I got it. Ready to put the sticker in the permit.
And this permitting process is so confusing and so broken that the Street Vendor Project estimates that 90% of New York City food trucks are operating within a loophole of rented permits.
Before that, were you renting a permit? Can you tell me how much it was?
Some people sell 15,000, some people 20,000.
So this is a legal gray area that gives vendors no protections of the permit holder revoking the permit at any time, and they're paying up to $15,000 a year to rent the permit, which is certainly a cost that gets passed on to you, the customer, through raising food prices so the middlemen can make a profit.
So now that you have your permit, you're going to be making so much more money.
I'm gonna save this money. My kids are very happy.
So if I want to become a food vendor today and get a citywide vending permit legally, there is literally no way for me to do that because that waiting list was closed to new names in 2022. All right, we're gonna get back to business. It's nearly closing time. I think I did okay today, but Dan's gonna help me tally up my earnings.
We always look at the rolls. If you did good on the rolls, you did a good hot dog day.
Okay.
But a day like today, I would imagine you did a much better drink day.
Do we have an estimate of how much the cart earned for the day?
I would say, if I had to guess, on a Tuesday, it's probably going to do about $1,000.
Okay.
So that's not bad.
Does that feel right?
That's okay. Every Tuesday we hit over that number, you know.
Okay.
That's a good number.
I am absolutely exhausted after today. I slept in a van, I've been on my feet all day, in a cart where literally every surface functions as an oven. And after all that, we made about $1,000, which is like $600 in profit for 9 hours of work. So this month, Dan's cart would make like $18,000. But that's working 6 days a week in literally one of the best spots in the city. It also doesn't take into account the slower months in the winter where Dan makes about 40% as much as we made today. So roughly, Dan's making just over $100,000 a year. But again, he's got a great spot and he's been at this a long time, so he has a few exceptions that make him more profitable.
So if I were to start my own cart in Dan's amazing spot tomorrow, I'd probably have even a bit lower income because I'd have a smaller cart, have to pay for a commissary, and be working alone.
But again, that's assuming I can legally get a permit, which I can't. So we subtract $15,000 a year for me to rent a technically illegal permit. It's not hard to see why vendors might start raising their prices to try to earn a little more. It's crazy that any vendors are able to make this work.
And finally, it was time to test all that I learned today. I challenged the hot dog king himself to a cook-off. Who can make the fastest and best hot dog?
Ready?
Yeah.
Set, go. All the toppings. Keep moving quick. Taking his time with the sauerkraut still, because he appreciates the...
No, you got to do it right. And there you go.
Wow. All right, 34 seconds. We can set it on the rack.
You ready? Ready, go.
Okay. I forgot all my steps. Okay.
You got to cook that hot dog.
Sir, I'm in a race. Can you go to the cart next door?
There you go. Done. 43 seconds.
Okay, 43 seconds. Mine was slower. We'll call the intern over. All right, tell us which one is more beautiful.
This one.
Wrong choice, you're fired. Taste test both.
I don't want.
Got to be the same.
They are pretty similar.
However, oh my God!
I'm sorry, and I know I just lost my
You're
job.
fired again. Dan, you have a very hard job. This was a hard day's work. I have total respect for what you do in there.
Yeah. Hot in there, right? It's hot.
Who looks like they want a hot dog? Pretty good deal. Do you want a hot dog? You don't like hot dogs? Okay. It's a tough sell, a loose hot dog. It's almost like if they wanted one, they would have gone to the cart.